Welcome to The Explainer. Right, let's just jump straight in, because today we are unpacking what is, without a doubt, one of the absolute greatest, most dramatic comeback stories in the history of sports. We're talking about the legendary Brazilian striker Ronaldo and his downright unbelievable journey to the 2002 World Cup.
I mean, think about it. How did a man whose knee literally exploded just 2 years prior make it back to the grandest stage in all of sports? It seriously defies logic. It defies medical science. But to truly grasp the sheer magnitude of what Ronaldo pulled off in 2002, we can't just start at the beginning. No, we need to start right at the boiling point.
Which brings us to part 1, the ultimate showdown.
So picture this. It's June 30th, 2002. We're at the International Stadium in Yokohama, Japan. You've got almost 70,000 screaming fans in the stands. And get this, an estimated 1.1 billion people watching on TV. On one side, there's Brazil. They're chasing a record 5th world title, led by Ronaldo, the deadliest striker on the planet, on an absolutely desperate quest for redemption. And standing in his way, Germany. Anchored by Oliver Kahn, who was, hands down, the tournament's absolute best goalkeeper. Kahn was a literal brick wall. He'd only let in a single goal in the entire tournament up to this point. Talk about an unstoppable force meeting an immovable object, right?
But behind all that superstar swagger was some very real, very intense human fear. Ronaldo himself actually admitted, "I was very scared." See, on the afternoon of this massive game, while all his teammates were taking their normal pre-match naps, Ronaldo was terrified. He was so paralyzed by the fear of repeating a horrific past trauma that he literally forced his backup goalkeeper, Dida, to stay awake with him, just to talk, just to keep his mind busy. So, what exactly was he so afraid of? To understand that, we've got to snap the timeline back 4 years.
Welcome to part 2, the 1998 mystery.
The events of that day in 1998 are still one of football's craziest, most debated mysteries. We're talking hours before the 1998 World Cup final against France. In his hotel room, a 21-year-old Ronaldo suffers a sudden, terrifying fit. Teammates said he had whole-body convulsions, flailing arms, the whole traumatic scene. He gets rushed to a private clinic in Paris for rapid-fire neurological and cardiac tests. And incredibly, because they didn't find an imminent risk to his life, the Brazilian medical staff, Doctors Lidio Toledo and Joaquim Damada, actually cleared him to play just hours later. But out on the pitch, Ronaldo looked like a ghost. He was sluggish, completely detached, and Brazil ended up suffering a brutal 3-0 defeat to France.
Ronaldo's own take on that day is honestly chilling. He said, "We lost the World Cup, but I won another cup, my life." The fallout from this was absolute chaos. I mean, it sparked a literal congressional investigation in Brazil and spawned some of the wildest conspiracy theories you'll ever hear. People were accusing Nike of forcing a sick player onto the pitch to protect their investment. There were even whispers about intentional poisoning the night before. Eventually, the Brazilian medical team was officially cleared of negligence. The council basically said the doctors were just honoring the player's desperate wish to play. But the truth was buried under all that intense speculation. Ronaldo left France completely broken.
And that brings us to part 3, a devastating setback.
Fast forward a bit. Back in 1997, El Fenomeno was this unstoppable, explosive prodigy for Inter Milan. Absolutely terrifying defenders all over Europe. But by April 12, 2000, that reality just shattered. He had already missed 5 months from a prior knee surgery, and in a match against Lazio, he finally makes his big return. But you won't believe this. Just 6 minutes into his comeback, attempting one of his trademark stepovers, his knee just gives out completely. He collapsed in pure agony, and the entire stadium went dead silent.
The reality of this injury is horrifying. Just listen to his physical therapist, Nilton Petrone. He said his kneecap actually exploded, and it ended up in the middle of his thigh. His knee was the size of a football ball. Can you even imagine? Petrone talked about how Ronaldo was crying in the hospital, literally begging for morphine to stop the pain. He'd call his therapist in the middle of the night pleading, "Tell me I'm going to be able to play football again. Please don't lie to me." But medical science at the time, they basically said it was a wrap. His career was widely presumed dead.
Let's move on to part 4, rebuilding the Selección.
Meanwhile, Brazil's road to the 2002 World Cup was an absolute train wreck. During qualifying, they burned through 3 different coaches and went through over 65 players trying to find something that worked. They even suffered a downright embarrassing defeat to Honduras in the 2001 Copa America. Yes, Honduras. They were genuinely on the verge of not qualifying for the World Cup for the first time in history. But then enter Luis Felipe Scolari, Big Phil.
He comes in, completely tosses out that traditional, beautiful, flowing Brazilian style and installs what people called bully boy soccer. It was disciplined, highly aggressive, and all about disrupting the opponent at all costs.
Scolari brought a brilliant tactical shift to the table, moving them to an experimental 3-5-2 formation. He puts the incredibly tough Lucio in charge of a back three. Because of that back three, it gave absolute freedom to their legendary attacking fullbacks, Cafu and Roberto Carlos, to just sprint up and down the wings. But the absolute best part? It unlocked the 3 Rs up front: Ronaldinho, Ronaldo, and Rivaldo. Now, here's a fun fact. Scolari actually admitted later on that Rivaldo, who is playing a slightly deeper playmaking role, was his most tactically crucial player, dutifully following every single order to the letter.
But, tactics alone weren't going to cut it. Brazil needed to master sports medicine. The 2002 tournament was in Japan and South Korea, held earlier than usual, right after a grueling European club season. Everyone was exhausted. Defending champions France and tournament favorites Argentina completely flamed out early on, looking totally gassed. Brazil figured out that whoever managed fitness best was going to take the trophy. So they completely ditched the European club rehab methods. They took total independent control over the medical prep for their stars, especially Ronaldo and Rivaldo, and literally whipped them into peak prime condition right in time for summer.
All right, back to the climax. Part 5, the 2002 final.
So we are back in Yokohama, and the tension is just suffocating. A huge reason for that? Oliver Kahn's ridiculous 427-minute streak without letting a single ball past him. In the first half, Ronaldo was definitely knocking on the door, but he missed 3 really agonizing chances. He shot wide, Kahn easily saved a weak one, and right before halftime, Kahn stretched out his foot to block a third. But here's the thing about Ronaldo. His defining trait wasn't just his otherworldly skill. It was his relentless perseverance. He just wouldn't quit.
Then comes the 67th minute. First, Ronaldo shows this crazy tenacity. He actually tracks back and strips the ball right off Germany's Dietmar Hamann. He feeds it over to Rivaldo, who just blasts a low, hard shot. And then, the absolute unthinkable happens. Oliver Kahn, the unbreakable wall himself, makes a rare, devastating mistake. He spills the ball, and Ronaldo, who never stopped his run for a second, pounces right on the rebound and slots it straight into the bottom corner. 1-0 Brazil. The streak is broken.
And just 12 minutes later, we get to see that telepathic connection between Brazil's superstars seal the whole deal. Kleberson bursts down the right side and cuts the ball inside. Rivaldo is standing right in the path of the pass, but instead of taking it, he executes this brilliant dummy, just letting the ball roll cleanly through his legs. The pass flawlessly finds Ronaldo, who seamlessly touches it away from a desperate tackle by Geraldo Samoa. And with his very next touch, he just strokes it into the bottom right corner like he's doing a casual Sunday training drill. 2-0, game over.
Which brings us to our final chapter, Part 6, Ultimate Redemption.
So what's the big takeaway from all this? Well, first off, 8. Ronaldo scored an unbelievable 8 goals during that tournament, taking home the Golden Boot. He completely and utterly obliterated the ghosts of 1998 and totally erased those horrific, career-ending injuries from 2000. When he was subbed off before the final whistle, he got a massive standing ovation, just beaming with that famous gap-toothed smile of his.
The second number you need to remember is 5. This incredible victory secured Brazil's record 5th World Cup title. It's a monumental milestone that, crazy enough, remains totally untouched even as we look ahead to the 2026 tournament. Under Big Phil Scolari, a Messi team that almost didn't even qualify ended up winning all 7 of their matches in regulation time. It was truly historic.
Which leaves us with this final, massive question to chew on. We just saw what Ronaldo managed to do with a body that was literally broken and rebuilt. But what if he had never suffered those devastating knee injuries? If he had kept that explosive, lightning pace of his early 20s for his entire career, would he be universally recognized without a shadow of a doubt as the absolute greatest footballer in the history of the sport? Think about that for a second. The fact that we even have to ask just shows you exactly how phenomenal El Fenomeno truly was. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.